What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Seoulweaver Podcast. I am your host, Will Brooks. Seoulweaver Webcast, excuse me. I'm your host, Will Brooks, and as always, I'm coming to you from right smack dab in the middle of Seoul with a brand new prepisode of this new thing that I'm trying to do or that I'm doing. It's been happening every week with the Seoulweaver Webcast, where I combine my podcast that I was doing previously with a current events show or a current events segment and a social media and upcoming events segment, all of which have been thrown for a loop this evening. Things are a little bit, you notice I'm a little bit late. I like to start at 8 o'clock KST. It is 8:48, and I have had a rough time getting things together. I'm not even able to double check this and make sure you guys hear me, to be completely honest. I'll need to get that done. But we're still kicking things on. Just sometimes things don't go as you plan when you try to do things live and you fail to plan. This is actually on my end. I failed to plan, and when I finally sat down to pick everything up, there was so much that I wanted to talk about that I had a hard time like limiting it down. So I said, okay, let me go ahead and delay the show till 8:30. Let me go ahead and delay it until whenever. I just want to get this stuff in. And there's a lot that I would like to talk about and very little time. I take that back. There's a lot of time actually, man, because I don't have work tomorrow. It is Veterans Day. Actually Saturday is Veterans Day, but Veterans Day is acknowledged for federal employees on this Friday, so I don't have work tomorrow, so we can chill, man. Like, I got no plans tonight. If Uni heard me say that, she would be so upset, because she is like, we are going to get together and watch there's a Korean drama that she wants to watch that we have been watching that is really good. Actually, I love the actual drama, but I'm just not a TV watcher. So it's just really hard when you add subtitles into it, because I can't understand everything that they're saying in Korean. That it's just gonna be blah. I'll get into that later. It's actually a good show, and I wouldn't mind talking about it at the end of this. I wonder if Uni comes in, she might want to jump on and chat about it a little bit. I do. I hope you all had a great weekend. It's weird to kind of do this show on Thursday, because by the time Thursday comes around, I want to tell you about my weekend, and it's like so close to the next weekend. Like this basically is my weekend now. That it's like, why are we talking about last week's stuff? I don't know. Maybe we'll figure something out. Maybe I'll figure something out where I'm talking about the weekend upcoming instead of the weekend that just passed. Or I don't know. Maybe we'll do something on Monday and talk about the weekend, something really short. In any case, I had a great weekend. We actually went out and did a meetup, or attended a meetup with Talk to Me in Korean. They're like this online site and podcast, this entity that teaches Korean here in Korea. I've been trying to step my Korean game up lately, because my Korean, considering how long I've been here, my Korean sucks and I'm not happy about it, and I want to improve that. And Hyunwoo's son over there with Talk to Me in Korean is a great teacher, just because he seems to be passionate and knowledgeable about language. So he's somebody that I like to follow over there. And Kyung-ha and the other team members are great teachers as well. So we did a meetup with them. Actually, I think we'll be in a video in there. I did a terrible job on the video. I'll talk about that after that. But little Will did a great job on the video. Oh my God, it's crazy to watch your kid grow up and start doing stuff. But yeah, that's what my weekend was like. I hope yours was great. Let me know in the comments what you got into. If you're here in Korea, let me know what you got into. If you're anywhere, let me know what you did. Let me know what you did, and let me know what you have planned for this weekend. Let's go ahead and jump into the show today. Really quick, there is no podcast. I didn't prepare it, to be completely honest, because there's so much news. There's so much to talk about, and I couldn't really even think about anything other than what was taking place here in Korea this week. And if you don't know what I'm referring to the visit of Donald Trump. So Donald Trump actually went on his trip to Seoul. We talked about it last week. And he went on his tour of Asia. I believe he's in China now, or departing China now. And we talked about what that was like, what that would be like, what we were wondering what that would bring to us here in Korea and South Korea, who are waiting to see how Trump is going to react, what the next step is with North Korea. North Korea has been a little, I guess, Have they been quiet? It seems like they've been quiet because news comes at such a rapid pace these days that it just seems like if we didn't hear anything about them the day before yesterday, then we don't hear anything about them at all. Let me double check and make sure my audio is good, man. I'm sorry, guys. Still kind of getting used to the whole produce and film and do everything at the same time. So without further ado, so what I want to do instead of the podcast is I want to cover a few stories, the big stories that are present or prominent in the wake of Trump visiting. I hate to say it. I don't mean the wake. I mean like after he's gone, the aftermath. It all sounds bad. Just with him being having come and gone, what happened? So some interesting things did take place. For starters, let's go ahead and jump into this. Trump gave North Korea is covering Trump. They're covering Trump's visit, and they're covering. You see the headline here is North Korea reports anti-U.S. rallies in South Korea without comments on Trump's speech. So he spent 2 days here in Korea. The last day he gave a speech to the Korean parliament, and he talked if North Korea is not covering what Trump said, then he might have said something good, right? Like he might have done something right in the sense that they're not taking snippets of what he said and playing it on North Korean state media. And I actually talked about this last week. I mentioned this because I was talking about how sometimes I feel vindicated when I'm reading things next week because I'm like online talking about this, and I'm like sometimes I get a little nervous about what position I'm taking. But I actually mentioned last week that when Trump says things like we'll have no choice but to totally destroy North Korea, it's not exactly helpful, right? Like throw some shade at the regime, like make the regime the problem. Like if you like Kim Jong-un wants nothing more than to have audio of Donald Trump saying he wants to totally destroy North Korea. So that was like my main concern is would he say anything like that when he got here? And again, when you see a headline like this, you can kind of tell that he didn't. He actually kept it together. And so what he did in his speech to Parliament, Korean Parliament on his exit, he put the focus on the North Korean regime. He put it on the Kim regime. And he said like, hey, this is on like we have a problem with the leadership in North Korea, and that's what we've been really calling for. That's what a lot of people have been calling for all this time. Like you don't need Trump to get out there and start slamming like North Korea as a country. You want him to slam Kim Jong-un and his dictatorship, authoritarian rule, and his human rights violations, and that's exactly what Trump did. And I got a quote here from Trump, and you won't hear me say too many great things about how he handles things because I think he's a little crazy. But this is exactly his speechwriters, whoever kept him on message. This is the message we should be delivering, or this is the message the U.S. should be delivering to kind of keep things, I don't know, clean in a certain sense to where you don't just muddy the waters. But he said the weapons you're acquiring are not making you safer. They're putting your regime in grave danger, which to me kind of plays to that self-reliance, not self-reliance. I can't remember the word. Every step you take down this dark path increases the peril you face, Trump said. It's not the paradise your grandfather envisioned. It's the hell that no person deserves. And so that was Trump's quote. Of course, it's pretty. America has its own problems with human rights and things like that. But if that's sticking with the general message of America, that makes it that puts the blame back on North Korea, and that doesn't paint America as the bad light or the bad actor. And to this point, up until now, you really haven't been able to differentiate who is the bad actor or who's, with this rhetoric, this war of words, who's the bad actor. man, I'm trying to think of this word. I'm distracted. I'm like, it's self-preservation. So that quote I was talking about, or that line I was talking about, they are putting your regime in grave danger. That self-preservation mythology that they have over in North Korea is what's being challenged. And so I think if you play to Kim Jong-un's self-preservation and his regime's self-preservation, you get further along with you just get further along with talks, especially when there's no communication going back and forth other than what's being passed on in the media and what's being passed on in Twitter. It's not like they go talk. It's not like the U.S. and Mexico where they say one thing in front of the cameras and then they go and have this back channel where they talk to each other on different, and they might be saying something different to each other. There are no talks reportedly with North Korea. So I think this message was good, and the fact that North Korea is actually reporting on just the protest. They're not reporting on what Donald Trump actually said during the speech is actually a sign that you may have said something right. So kudos to Donald Trump and his speechwriter and whoever kind of is getting this under control. I still think he's insane, and we know it's Trump. He may go over somewhere else. In fact, we can talk about what he said in China, but we know that his rhetoric can change in an instant. So there's no guarantee that he will keep with this. Of course, it's who he is and what he is. But if they can maintain this for an extended period of time, I get really positive about why. I don't know. It puts me in a more positive light, or a more positive. I don't know. It makes me more positive about the future in North Korea, the future here on the Korean Peninsula, the future here in the region as a whole, because this doesn't just affect Korea and North Korea and South Korea. Japan and China are also implemented, in Russia to a certain degree. On to the next topic here, though. This was a weird play, and so this actually has me a little confused. Well, I don't know. It just doesn't. I'm confused and conflicted about what happened here. So let me give you a little background. Actually, you don't need any background if you happen to catch the last two shows. Dokdo and the Comfort Women are topics that I've brought up in previous shows, probably numerous times in previous shows, because they are the real tension points between South Korea and Japan. I'm sure there's more, but those are the ones that are high profile issues where the current leadership here in Korea disagree with the current leadership, and probably all leadership in Japan, on what the outcome is. Dokdo is an island that is contested between South Korea and Japan, and the Comfort Women are the issue with the Comfort Women is that Japan actually forced women into sex slavery during World War II. Japan says they've apologized for it, and technically they have, because the previous administration actually accepted an apology from Japan in 2015, I believe. But the vast majority of Korean citizens, I think, do not accept that apology, and they disagree with the previous administration's acceptance of said apology. You'll have to get with somebody. I mean, one day we'll have somebody on who actually knows the nuances between between South Korea and Japan. It goes way back to the early 1900s when Japan actually, starting in the early 1900s when Japan colonized South Korea, or South and North Korea, the whole peninsula. There's just a lot of horrible stories about atrocities that took place during then. The Comfort Women is probably one of them that has been contested to this day. So with all that being said, somebody felt that it would be a good idea to kind of inject those touchy subjects, topics, touchy points between South Korea and Japan into Donald Trump's visit to South Korea. So what you see here, you see the headline: former sex slave Dokdo shrimp at Trump dinner sparked new Korea-Japan row. And so I just reported on it last week, or just not reported on it. I'm not a reporter. I just talked about it last week. Japan is kind of losing interest in Dokdo, but I mentioned then that sometimes Japan just acts like they're losing interest, and they bring it up 10 years later, like, no, we didn't. What are you talking about? We thought it was resolved, and that's kind of what's been going on with the comfort women, but to a certain degree. But this is Trump embracing a former sex slave who was actually very vocal and very critical of Japan. Obviously, so she's saying that they put her into sex slavery. No matter how long ago it was, she's 88 years old. No matter how long ago it was though, you never forget that, and she never stops fighting for proper compensation. And they're saying that they didn't get that from Japan. So this is a disputed topic, kind of injecting into Trump's visit immediately after Trump went to Japan is pretty it's kind of questionable timing, I think, or questionable motives. Like, was there a reason this had to happen this way? Is there a reason that, I mean, I wonder what the real nuances of this are. You hear a lot. I mean, so first of all, Trump went to Japan. That was the first country he went to, and he stayed there for 3 days. He came to South Korea, stayed here for 2 days, and he went to China and stayed for 2 days. I'm not sure if sometimes it seems like there's some weird little nuances between South Korea and Japan, like what to spell the name of your country with in English. Like, I've seen Korea spelled with a C, and I heard that Japan like changed that when they came to Korea. They started spelling it with a K because K came after J in the English alphabet. Seems like something that it doesn't seem like something like countries would do to one another. It seems petty, but there must be some more to it than what I'm grasping in my little mind. But in any case, like, there's also the relationship between Donald Trump and Shinzo Abe. They say, like, people refer to it, the media reports it as a pretty strong relationship. They talk about like the bromance between Trump and Abe and things like that, and how they get along great. You saw, I don't know if you've seen it, but Abe sat down with Trump. They had burgers and fries, and they had signed like make alliances even stronger. Shouldn't say Abe and Donald Trump make alliances even stronger. Hats, like the Make America Great Again hats, and they signed them. Just they just seem buddy, even if Abe looks distressed or just annoyed half the time that he's with Trump. But in contrast, the relationship between Trump and President Moon doesn't seem that chummy, right? And that could be because President Moon's party is pretty much the Democratic Party equivalent here in Korea. The opposition party is the Republican Party, and so you would imagine that Moon, and I don't know what the relationship between the parties in Japan are, but you would imagine that President Moon and President Trump kind of sees Moon as the opposition, the progressive party, because he seems to take that into thought the moment he's dealing with somebody, whether or not they are on his side or whether or not they are on the other side. And maybe they feel the need to kind of, I don't know, it seems like they kind of smear Japan in a way with it, man. I mean, it's all like true things. I don't think there's any smear going on, but it seems like they throw a little shade to Japan when they serve dokdo shrimp when they serve dishes from a contested island with Japan, when they talk about and they introduce somebody who was a victim of Japanese atrocities. It just seems a little strange to do immediely after a trip to Japan. It's like, hey, remember that guy you were just chilling and eating burgers with? Yeah, his guys did this. This is the rough we have going on. These are the roles we have going on with these guys. And I think seriously, and I saw a quote, the Korean foreigner. I saw somebody say something on Twitter like, why do this? Like, don't you have bigger fish to fry? Like, don't you have bigger things going on with North Korea threatening a nuclear war or up north? And I mean, that's one way to look at it. That's why I say I have mixed feelings on this one, because it seems like something that you can do without, when you should probably get Japan, South Korea, and China all on the same accord dealing with North Korea. But at the same, I guess President Moon said he can multitask, man. He can get people on the same accord or get people on the same page when dealing with North Korea. That's not hard to do. Nobody wants North Korea to have nukes, so he can do that at the same time still throw shade to Japan about their disputes over Dokdo and the comfort women. Yeah, that's I I don't know I don't know. That was an interesting decision to make. Um, and Japan didn't like it at all. At the same time, I don't think Japan is. I mean, is it ridiculous to say that Japan doesn't get to dictate who South Korea invites to a dinner with the president? That too. You don't tell me who I invite to my house to host my own dignitaries. So wow, yeah, that's a pretty interesting take, or an interesting development there. We'll see how that goes, bringing things right back to the center of focus. And I think politically, that's what President Moon wants to do, because he doesn't want that same concept that I said. Like, there's a lot of, I mean, I don't know if you're aware of it, but from what I understand, a lot of the residual pro-Japanese occupation people of power, there are people who have a lot of power in South Korea that are still very pro-Japanese, and they were pro-Japanese during Japanese, their families were pro-Japanese during Japan's colonization of Korea. And so because of the war with North Korea, there wasn't a chance to kind of resolve things with those individuals. And this is as it's been explained to me. And so those individuals still reside in power. And the idea that you just forget about things and let things go and let bygones be bygones, and it doesn't have results or, doesn't have repercussions later on down the line. My vocabulary drops when this camera gets on. But the fact that the idea that it doesn't have repercussions later on down the line is ridiculous. You still end up with unresolved issues. So keeping those issues at forefront probably isn't a bad idea. I don't know. I'm not a diplomat. I don't know how to be diplomatic, so don't take my advice for it. Just trying to figure it out. On to the next topic, which is really near and dear to my heart because it implicates the military industrial complex of the United States. U.S. wants South Korea to introduce advanced reconnaissance assets, according to an envoy. So this is the acting U.S. ambassador to South Korea. What's his name? I forgot his name. Nats? I shouldn't have done that. His name is not in my notes some kind of way. I think it's Nat. He was here during Trump's trip, obviously, and he talked a little bit about what his idea for Korea's future military capabilities are. He did that while simultaneously praising the return of Korea and China to like former I'm sorry, guys. Hang on one sec. So yeah, he did that while kind of praising Korea and Japan, or Korea and China's return to return to normal. So Korea and China have been at odds with one another. No kidding, since the deployment of THAAD, this weapon that we've talked about in past again, and or in past episodes again. And an interesting thing, like South Korea and China had to go through this huge conflict before they could get things like resolved. They actually, I mentioned that they almost didn't do their monetary deal recently, which would have really thrown things out of whack. China has actually put a lot of pressure on Korean companies that are operating in China in the time that all this has been going on. Just a lot of madness going on between China and South Korea because of their deployment of U.S. military equipment. And so it's kind of weird to watch this guy talk about the relationship between those two countries return to normal while simultaneously trying to slang freaking military equipment to South Korea. And it says it's reconnaissance equipment, and it sounds like everything sounds good on the surface, right? Like it sounds like it's stuff that South Korea needs to deter North Korea. But at the same time, how much are these US companies that produce this equipment going to make in this case? Like how much are they going to make in this instance that it's just a little frustrating to watch. And so even in my notes, so what did he say? This is a bad way to do it. So I just want to kind of read a quick quote to you from what he's saying, what the ambassador is saying. In my notes, like it's all like small print. I gotta change this. I say, but also we want Korea to have too things like Apache helicopters, things like Aegis radar systems for naval vessels, and some other things coming probably still under discussion. Will what's that? Will be things like the P-8 aircraft, all this high grade military equipment that they want to sell to South Korea, anti-submarine warfare aircraft and stuff like that. And it's like that's kind of what placed the relationship between South Korea and China in turmoil in the first place. So maybe these are different because they don't have the same capabilities as THAAD, but it's weird that they're so amped on pushing all this military equipment onto South Korea. I think and so I have in my notes like insert military industrial complex rant here. Like it's weird because I'm kind of part of the military industrial complex. It kind of feeds my family, so I have this conflict within myself to not say anything too crazy about it. But if I'm hinting at it here, you know what I'm thinking. Like this madness of just being like having weapons of war be our like America's #1 export just drives me up a wall. And the way these companies work and the way these diplomats work and the way like between the relationship between politics and the entities that create those weapons or the industry, that industry is like this sick relationship where they feed off of each other and then they just suck up all this money and they don't do anything, that they don't distribute that money back to the citizens, like the country. It's just crazy. Anyway, don't get me started on that. I could talk forever. I don't think it's a good idea to just load South Korea up with weapons while simultaneously stoking a war. It looks like there's a conflict of interest there. And of course, I said we would return back to Trump because, of course, he did kind of go back to his old ways. While he changed a lot, so I did mention, I gave him kudos in the first post, like he changed a lot of his rhetoric here in South Korea. But when he got back to China and he got back with President Xi Jinping, I'm sure I'm saying his name wrong. I should probably listen a little bit more. But when they got back together, when he got back to China, he returned to the same rhetoric that sounds like it's like outsource the North Korea problem to China. And it's like, well, I let out a sigh of exasperation when I saw that initially. But I guess in essence, what else are you supposed to do when you're dealing with China in China? Like what other message could you have with China? It's not important to change the message and kind of put pressure on China to do more with their neighbors, since they are the kind of in the most position or the best position to do so. But I don't know. I was a little tired. It gave me a hint, or gave me like this sense of returning back to the same talking points that Trump had before. But as long as he still sticks with the talking points that he had while he was here in Korea, I don't see anything wrong really with trying to keep the pressure on China to do something about North Korea, to stick to the sanctions, to stick to the deterrent, something, those actions that are meant to be non-military deterrence of pursuit of nuclear weapons. To be honest, though, I would like to know what the real effect of sanctions is. Like, I've heard people talk about sanctions all the time and say they don't work. Like, people say the sanctions don't work. We've been putting sanctions on them all this time. Look what they do. They don't really hurt the people who are making the decisions. So what's the point? I don't know. I don't think that's true. If they didn't hurt and at all, then why would North Korea even do them? Or why would North Korea even respond to them? They respond negatively to sanctions all the time. So yeah, I think they do work. Dang. So that's all we got for, those are the 4 topics I wanted to talk about, the 4 stories that kind of take prominence after Trump's visit to South Korea and to other parts of Asia. I'm going to take a break really quick here because there's part of me that is extremely worried that this is not broadcasting. And that would suck so bad. Like, that would be a very discerning, I would not like to see that happen. So I'm going to check that out really, really briefly. I will be right back with you guys in just a moment. See you in a minute. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Seoulweaver Webcast. I am coming back with a few quick, in fact, let me jump back on this. My worries or my concerns about the broadcast were, for no reason, everything was working out just fine. I just didn't see it on my end. A lot of work to do. I would really like to change some of this up. So I don't know, one of these days, I think I'm gonna get Little Will in here to like help me like do the show, man. Like, he's 7 years old, but he could produce. It's real simple. Just put pictures up, click next on the thing. I could just make it really easy for him. But it really is not a bad idea. Get him or Uni in here. But we are back, and now that I am done going through the Trump-related news, there were a few other things I wanted to talk about. Just a couple other news stories that caught my attention that I wanted to share with you guys. And while we're on the topic of North Korea, let's just stick with it because I don't want to come back to it once I'm done. Because I don't know. I just don't. And so I mentioned before, we actually have done a couple of episodes or talked about a couple of stories that involve North Korean defectors, and we've talked about how it's not always great in South Korea. I think the first time I talked about this was actually on a Facebook Live broadcast where I was talking about a North Korean defector that wanted to go back to North Korea that like couldn't go back. And that was the first time I'd had heard of a North Korean defector that kind of changed their mind after they were here in South Korea. And for me, the immediate go-to thought is that That's crazy. How could you get to South Korea after being in North Korea with what I've heard about North Korea? How could you get over here where it's like awesome, where I love it, and then want to go back home? And those of you who know, I do conversational English with a college professor. We're real close. And we were talking, a Korean college professor, we were talking about what, like, why that is. And he was explaining to me that when they get used to the communist, even though, like, when they get used to the communist ideology, it's hard to survive in a capitalist society. And that's pretty, like, you never think it through that way. Because since I grew up in a capitalist society, I come over to South Korea, and I think it's awesome. I think it's great to see people starting up their own businesses, and I think it's great to see people, I don't know, out there just living their lives. Like when I walk around my neighborhood, I'm so happy that I'm here. And I mean, I'm going to talk a little bit later about a story or a video in which a CNN video where they came to South Korea. They interviewed expats and asked them, they talk about how they feel safer in South Korea than they actually do in the States. That's how I feel. And so it's crazy to see somebody come over from North Korea. We hear all these bad stories and see that they have a hard time making it here in South Korea. So what is that? And so what you're seeing here, and I want to make this actually a little bit bigger, is this is actually a survey that was done following the defection or the redefection or the repatriation of a South Korea or North Korean defector who defected to South Korea and recently went back to North Korea. And what's her name? Her name is Lim Ji-hyun. She was actually a television personality, and so she was well known. And for her to go back to North Korea was a big deal. Naturally so. I mean, not only did she didn't come over here to South Korea and like just have to fight to make it and struggle to make it among capitalism. She actually thrived, and then she ended up going back to North Korea, and she has some pretty harsh things to say about South Korea. That whole thing kind of blows my mind. But what you're seeing here is a depiction of where North Koreans settle in the world after they defect. And you'll notice that they're just all over the place. They prefer, and the article goes into how they prefer Western countries over South Korea, and which is mind blowing. And I'll read a quote to you here really quickly from one of the defectors. It's actually pretty long, but it kind of highlights what's going on. She said, It was hard to put up with discrimination from South Koreans when I came from North Korea," she said. "Knowing I'd be treated no different to other immigrants in foreign countries, I found the idea or the environment very attractive." She's talking about the idea of going to another country other than South Korea. Because, of course, if she gets there as a North Korean or a South Korean, they won't treat her any different than any other immigrants that come to that country. In Canada, for example. It was hard to put up with it. I'm sorry. I cut and pasted it twice. I missed the thing. She says something about the fact that I actually accidentally pasted this twice and I am messing this up right now. But she talks about how you have to do blue collar jobs when you come from North Korea because you don't have like the education and things that South Koreans have. And she talks about how blue collar workers in other countries are treated better than blue collar workers here in South Korea. And so that's something to consider. It's something I never considered, to be completely honest. I was always wondering how I always just assumed that when you defect from North Korea, you make it to South Korea and you're golden. But that turns out not to be the case for everyone. Of course, it isn't going to be the case for everyone. It's hard in South Korea for South Koreans, and that's something that I forget. I think some of us expats probably aren't quite aware of how hard it is for young South Korean people. Now that it's kind of catching a lot more attention, we hear about these three things that South Koreans give up, or young South Koreans give up, because it's just hard to make it without it. I'm trying to fix something on the fly here. It's not working out the way I planned. But we just, if things are going to be hard for educated South Koreans here in South Korea, imagine how much harder it would be for North Koreans who come over here, um, facing discrimination, facing whatever difficulties they face. They actually come over with a decent amount of benefits. A lot of I didn't see the benefits listed here, so I can't read them off to you right now. But there are some benefits that they get for being defectors once they're proven that they're not going to be like dangerous to the South Korean community. I'm sure. But there's a weird there's a weird case or a weird occurrence where North Korean defectors will come to South Korea, find it hard to make it, get up or get like make an attempt to relocate to another country, for example, Canada or the UK, find themselves being rejected, not receiving asylum there, come back to South Korea and be labeled they're a double defector at that point, and then lose the rights, the benefits that they had when they first came over, when they came over in the first place. It's just when they came over the first time. That sucks. That just puts people in a really rough situation. So the one thing I do want to talk about here is that I've seen a lot of I've seen quite a few instances or a lot of quite a few organizations that are designed to help North Koreans in North Korea. Hopefully those organizations are doing something for North Koreans who actually defected to South Korea, because the last thing I think you would want a North Korean saying when they come over here is that, oh my God, man, it sucks here. I really miss North Korea. That's the last thing you want to be said about. It's the last thing. That's the last message you want them relaying out there. Because again, like I mentioned before, with Donald Trump's words, Kim Jong Un would love to use terminology like that or rhetoric like that to further control the North Koreans that are still in North Korea. So there we go. There, all that's being done, or all that was being said, while I'm struggling with this this display here to get like this next topic up here. I don't know why I'm putting that much work into it. It's not even a picture. So on to the next topic, the chaebols. I don't know if you know what chaebols are in Korea. I don't know if you've seen me cover them before, but Samsung, Hyundai, SK, those are huge conglomerates in Korea, and they have a lot of power. So they kind of are known for roaming around and doing whatever they want. Unfair, treatment of workers. They're kind of bullies when it comes to taxes, to paying like funding, to outsourcing jobs. They're bullies when it comes to medium-sized companies, and dealing with them and outsourcing the dirty, dangerous, and what is it? 3D, dirty, dangerous, and I don't know what happens to me when I get on camera. They're like, somebody else fill it in, somebody else cover for me. But yeah, when the 3D jobs, they actually outsource them to smaller companies. They outsource all the risk and then they get all the reward. And so these companies or these chaebol are known for just being a little bully. But this is a good news story. So another thing that's been going on a lot lately is you've been seeing a lot about sexual harassment in the news and in the media. It's just across everywhere. There's Harvey Weinstein going on, George Bush getting wrapped up in it. Kevin Spacey getting wrapped up in it. Just these horrible practices of sexual harassment and sexual assault that have been going on and are coming to light and are becoming really big issues. I don't know if that has anything to do with what the chaebol are doing here, but they're actually updating their policies on sexual harassment. And it's really inspiring to see, because I've heard a lot about the Korean work environment, and I've mentioned Waeshik. I've mentioned Waeshik before on this, in previous Prepisodes of the podcast and things like that. It's this unity thing that Koreans do, that the Korean employees will usually do with their companies. Korean companies, they get together, they take everybody out, They go to one place and they eat and drink, and then they go to another place and they eat and drink, and they do that like 4 to 5 times, maybe even more. And by the end, you got everybody from work that's still there is like wasted, and they're hanging out with each other and they're stuck with each other all day, and they spend more time with each other than they do with their actual families, and things tend to happen. And so with that kind of work environment, sexual harassment, sexual assault happen more than you would think. And there was nothing really, no guidelines, no infrastructure really to deal with it. There were no sexual harassment policies. If they were a joke. People found themselves like trying to report it and then becoming a victim of backlash and resentment and things like that. It hurt their own careers. And so it's a good thing to see this changing. And so what they're doing, what the Chaebol are endorsing or what they're introducing are avenues of reporting. They're reducing guidelines and timelines for immediate investigations into reports of sexual harassment and sexual assault. And they're introducing victim protection. I think those three things are the big steps to moving on or moving or kind of like moving up to the next level as far as creating a safe work environment for your workers here, for your employees. So it's good to see this happening. And the Chaebol is kind of, I don't know how much of it is real. Sometimes things happen in Korea. It's just lip service, and it's just an act. It's just a facade to kind of make yourself, make your company, make your organization look progressive. Hopefully that's not the case for this. So I think we'll keep an eye out. I'll keep an eye out and see how things are going, because I think once things start happening, you're going to hear a lot about it, because it's a big change from what life is like in Korean in Korean industry, or working for a Korean company. I've heard a lot of stories about what goes on. Not just heard a lot of stories. If you walk around like I walk around, if you're out late at night, because Korea never sleeps, right? Right around between 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the morning, you see all this going on. You see, like, you go to huge restaurant districts and huge drinking districts, like these areas where like everybody is there doing hueshik, and you see what it's like, because you see the boss drunk and stumbling out and yelling at kind of just being belligerent, and you see a group of girls over here kind of like trying to stay away from him because they can't say much to him because he's a boss, but at the same time they don't want to be felt up or insulted, or people saying crazy things to them, assaulted. And you see like the other not as drunk male co-workers trying to like keep the distance between, not trying to strong arm the boss because he's the boss, but trying to like keep the distance of the boss from whoever he's focused on at that time. I mean, it goes in more ways than just with sexual harassment and between like opposite sexes. Sometimes they get into it with these like pick on, I don't know, male coworkers that they don't like and stuff like that, or that they really can't stand, or that they only don't like when they get drunk. I don't know. It's a culture that is, I believe, is slowly changing in Korea from what I've seen. Like the medium-sized companies, they try to stay away from the hueshik mentality or the hueshik. They meet up from time to time, but they don't go out every night and like keep their coworkers from their families, because in the name of bonding with your coworkers. So it's cool to see something like that changing, and even the Chaebols kind of see the writing on the wall, and they're trying to actually address that. So kudos again to somebody I don't normally give kudos to. All right, guys, I'm gonna take a quick break. I heard Uni and Will walk in. I'm gonna jump off really quick. I'm gonna grab a beer, come back, and we're gonna do the half where we keep it a little light. I jumped ahead too early. We'll do social media posts and upcoming events. I don't have any upcoming events, so we're gonna do upcoming events live. So I will be right back. I'll see you in a minute. Stay tuned. Yeah, so it doesn't escape me that I should probably find some other music to play in between sessions or while I like take the breaks and stuff like that. It's not just gonna play my own music. I'm gonna change that up eventually. I actually got with a few people on SoundCloud and got permission to play their stuff. I just need to build the actual playlist and then come back and then I want to configure it like more than anything. I want you guys to know who they are and what song is playing and stuff like that. And I want to kind of give them a little recognition. So I'm trying to set it up to where that kind of shows up, like whoever's playing or whatever song's playing shows up down here somewhere. Where am I? Down here somewhere. So you can kind of go look them up and give them little props, look them up on SoundCloud, and let them know that you like their stuff if you like it. That's coming soon. I'm off tomorrow, so I'm gonna spend a little time putting that together. That that may be one of the things I spend putting together. Spend a little time putting together. Mm. Um, Before I go on, yeah, we can touch on this really quickly since I already showed it just a little bit. It's already this is just a post. It's actually an article in the Korea Herald where they're talking about the first damn. They're talking about the first cold snap that we had here, or the first cold wave watch. So like Korea does this cool thing where they send out when it's hot. The play on words there. When it's hot, Korea sends out heat wave messages to let you know that there are going to be heat waves coming through and the temperatures are going to get really high and you should really like take care of yourself and make sure that you are dressed appropriately. Make sure that you're drinking water. If you're going to be out like in the fields, make sure that you're just make sure people are aware of the extreme weather. And it's actually a really good thing because for a little while I heard that I mean in Korea now the younger people are trying to relocate to Seoul, and that kind of leaves the elderly out to, older people out to do the agricultural thing. They're tending to farms and stuff like that, and fix that real quick. But it's older people out in the farms, out in the fields, out working because younger people don't really dig that stuff. And so they're more susceptible to the extreme temperatures, the extreme heat, and things like that, especially when you combine their advanced age and what they're doing, the specific work that they're doing. So Seoul sends out these messages, or Korea sends out these messages via your cell phone, where it'll buzz and it'll give you like an emergency alert to let you know it's extremely hot or there's a heat wave coming. They'll send out emergencies and let you know like what areas are flooding right now, what reports are doing. It's an awesome thing. That's a great thing you can do when you got like a kind of a smaller geographical footprint, and that's one thing that Korea does really well. And we got that warning. I actually didn't get it. The first of those warnings regarding the cold wave came out yesterday, which is I think that's early. I heard recently that it's going to be a cold winter. I'm not looking forward to that. I It's like they said it's going to be a cold winter, but there's not going to be much snow. I'm from the desert. I hate cold weather, but and after being here for years and years and years, I never end up getting used to it. But the one thing I do like about the winter is the snow, and to hear that it's going to be super cold and there isn't going to be that much snow is a little depressing. That burns me up, man. So I like to go snowboarding. I like to go sledding with my son. So I really like some natural snow. That man-made snow is a little tough, especially if you're a noob. So already getting cold here, man. That drives me up a wall. And then another thing, it really makes me. It just sucks that you can't enjoy autumn for very long. So when autumn comes, when fall comes in Korea, like right now, like you gotta get out. Like you gotta do it right. You gotta do it quick, because it seems like it's only like six. Is it 6 weeks long? I don't know. Autumn is really really short in Korea, so it's just the temperatures start falling. Like one minute you're hot, you're sweating, then it starts to cool off, and you say, "Oh, it's so nice outside," and then before you know it, you're saying it's freaking cold. So the temperatures like spring and fall don't seem to last that long. And fall is by far for me the best time of year. It would be a toss up with spring if it wasn't for the pollution, the air pollution in spring. It seems to be really strong during then. But fall is just a great time of year. And here's another thing that happens in fall is that you get to see these great colors. Actually, Megan Bowen actually tweeted out like, "What's your favorite fall activity?" And I was like, "Oh, you can't even think of any fall activities, man. I just like to be out, like strolling. Like that's I guess that's my answer. That's my favorite fall activity is to just go stroll around. But that's my favorite activity at any time of the year except for the summer, to be completely honest. Hmm. And here's something that happens during the fall that's not really cool. Even though you get to see like the pretty colors and the leaves changing colors, especially with all the ginkgo leaves around here, all the ginkgo trees here in Seoul. I like planting them everywhere, and they turn these beautiful browns and yellows when it's fall. But what also falls is a freaking ginkgo like seeds. They stink. You wouldn't think that ginkgo smells so bad, but just looking at this picture right here on the left, like if you're watching it in the actual video, like I can smell it just looking at it. When you see people walk through like the underpath or the ground level of a ginkgo tree this time of year, it almost looks like they're trying to dodge like crap on the ground, right? Like it looks like you're trying to like walk through a like a just a I don't know, like this land minefield of like stinky crap that you don't want on your shoes. Even though you don't wear your shoes in your house, you don't even want it on the bottom of your shoes because your closet area, your little entryway, is gonna stink in your house if your shoes smell like that. One of the I don't know. That's just a side note about the fall life here in Seoul. Beautiful, beautiful. It's almost, it's kind of like, I'm not gonna go into it. I was gonna say it's kind of like food in Korea. Like it smells. There's a lot of dishes that smell bad, but like they taste really good. Like one time, to give you a quick example of what I'm talking about, when I was living down in Wagwan, my mother-in-law, I had some friends over, some neighbors over. My mother-in-law came in. She said, "I'm gonna make some kimchi jjigae. You guys want any kimchi jjigae?" And kimchi jjigae is this just kimchi stew. And we were like, "Yeah, we can go for some kimchi jjigae." We had all been in Korea for a while. Well, they had been in Korea for a while. I had been in Korea for ages, and we sat there, we watched TV, and we chatted while my mother-in-law put together some kimchi stew. But after a while, it started to smell so bad. Like I've never smelled kimchi that strong and that strong. Like it drove us out of the room. It drove them back upstairs, and it drove me into my room with the door closed, like because it was just that bad. And so I was pretty surprised. I thought when she called us out and said it was ready, that our neighbors weren't going to be able to come down and eat it because they aren't Korean at all. And so when I called them and said, "Hey, it's ready," they came on down and we went in. And then like right when I walked out of my room, I was like, "Man, that smells ridiculously good. Like I can't believe that's a total 180 from what it smelled like before. Best kimchi jjigae I've ever tasted by far. Like I still remember that it was really good. One of our neighbors grew up in a Muslim home. She wasn't Muslim, but she grew up in a Muslim home, and they didn't eat pork, and so she just can't process pork the way she just doesn't feel comfortable when she eats pork. Had pork in that kimchi jjigae, she ate that stuff up. It was delicious. So that's a quick note on how something that smells really bad can that's I guess the thin line between like something that smells bad and something that smells good. On the same note, I hear ginkgo stew is like really good. I don't know. I've never tasted it, but I'm going to taste it because of that story. So there's ginkgo. Um, so going from something really upsetting that doesn't really taste good, doesn't activate my pleasure factors, to something that I am not psyched about because it's gonna be so hard for me not to eat Cinnabon. They're bringing a Cinnabon to Seoul eventually. U.S. Bakery Cinnabon taps Seoul market. Did they already open it? I didn't read the article, guys. I'm sorry. It's linked in the description. Go ahead and check it out. I don't know if they opened it just yet, but it kind of looks like they did, right? It says they taps, so I think that's past tense. I gotta find out where this is. I do not like super sweet food since I got over here to Korea. Like I hate it. Like I can't like eating a regular Snickers now. Like I feel like I'm getting cavities as I'm chewing. Like it's just too sweet because my taste buds have changed since my arrival here. But I'm willing to face that off with Cinnabon. I don't eat like Krispy Kreme because it's too sweet. I didn't eat Krispy Kreme in the States though. But Cinnabon, there's just enough regular bread to kind of make the sweetness in a regular Cinnabon. I've never eaten any of like the different specialty kinds, but in a regular Cinnabon, there's just enough bread to kind of counteract all the sugary crap that's on top. And if you don't like it, you can just scrape some of it off. I'm gonna be at Cinnabon. Something else opened. Oh, a Dairy Queen opened here in Korea too. Gotta find out where that is. Jump on. I'm gonna share both of these. I'm gonna find these both and then share them in the Seoulweavers Facebook group. So if you're not a part of it, jump in there. You'll have that location once I get done with this and talk about it, or share that with the show, or share that with the group. I'm gonna find the links, man. Cinnabon. I don't know. They're probably gonna do pretty good in Korea. And lastly, speaking of one other food item, oh, how dark is that? I don't know if you guys can see that really. But this is a picture of Budak Bokamyeon, and if you can't see this, let me read it to you. It says, "Do not try this if you are not spicy. If you are not spicy food eaters, it's extremely spicy. Not recommended for children. Look for Korea Spicy Noodle Challenge at your SNS. Like look for a Korean Spicy Noodle Challenge on YouTube because that's what this is. And it's a picture of Budak Bokamyeon. And you know, to be honest, I did my own. I didn't do a Budak Bokamyeon challenge. I just went and got puldak, the dish that it's based on, and I just went and got the hottest puldak I could think of, or the hottest puldak that they had in a restaurant. It was delicious, but it was a nightmare. My boy Greg recorded that for me, and so that YouTube video is sitting on the Seoulweavers Facebook or the Seoulweavers YouTube channel. Like you can check that out. Just Google Seoulweaver Puldak Challenge, and it's there somewhere. I'll link it up in the description if I remember to come back. Yeah, it's not linked in the description right now. I'll link that up when I come back. I'll come back and actually add that link to the description. So yeah, man, Budak Bokamyeon. Have any of you guys done that challenge? I'm a little curious. If you have, leave your video in the description or leave a comment with the link. Oh, you can't link to your videos anymore on YouTube, huh? Leave it in the Seoulweavers Facebook group, man. I want to check them out because I want to see what other people go through when they go through those videos. So that's all I have for the social media, but I did want to share this quick video with you guys, and I should cue it up real quick to make sure that it's going where I want it to. So this is CNN interviewing expats who are here in Seoul, and they're out chilling doing so well, man, that I almost like it's just the epitome of what's going on to us who are here in Korea, watching people in the States flip out over the conflict with North Korea. But I do want to say something about it once it's done. And I don't know, it's not really something I haven't said before. You guys probably won't be all that surprised if you listen to the show often. But let me get this lined up for you guys so you can see what expats, or see what CNN sees expats thinking about the conflict with North Korea.
Okay, that's over 50 years now.
Yeah.
Why, if something had happened, it would have happened already. I think we.
I don't think so.
And escalating.
I'm sorry. Let me jump back, guys. I'm sorry.
A new president of the United States, and this war of words that has been escalating over the last couple of months. Do you feel the difference?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I don't think there's a difference. Yeah. I don't think there's been any fundamental change to the situation here.
Yes, seriously. I think, it's been since 1953 when the war ended. Okay, that's over 50 years now.
Yeah.
Why, if something had happened, it would have happened already. I think we've seen this rhetoric again and again and again and again.
If there was a preemptive attack, obviously North Korea would probably respond by, attacking Seoul. I just can't imagine that the American, defense establishment would sign off on that. Not in my wildest dreams.
So yeah, so I'm split on a lot of stuff, and you'll find that out about me as you watch the show. You'll see that I kind of teeter back and forth on the fence a lot because the idea that I don't know. Sometimes I'm like the idea that war is gonna break out after 50 years of peace. Doesn't seem realistic to me. But real talk, it hasn't been peace for 50 years. There have been attacks. There's been fire exchanged across the border or across the DMZ or at the DMZ. People have lost their lives up there. People have lost their lives down south, like North Korean. Were they U-boats? I don't know. North Korean submarines sank a ship, sank the Chonan ship a while ago. And I mean, there was a landmine attack. Even just since my time here, there's been a landmine attack. They shelled an island up in the northern region of South Korea. Just all this stuff happens. There's a woman who went on a hike up in North Korea, or up along North Korea, like this sponsored hike, and then got lost, and the soldiers shot her. There's just been a lot that has happened between North and South Korea over time. And I've said this before, it's hard to say, like, with all this violence going back and forth, it's hard to see just rhetoric triggering like an actual war. But I don't know, man. Like, I always go back, and so that's part of me thinks that. Another part of me always goes back and says, well, hey, like when World War II was going, 2 weeks before World War II kicked off, if you went and asked people, do you think there will be another great war in 2 weeks? Would they have said yeah? Like, did the whole world see it coming? No, right? So, like we don't. Who knows what will happen 2 weeks from now? Hell, if you go back to last year, I didn't think we'd be sitting here talking about this a year ago, because things were kind of just the same as they had always been. And so sometimes I think people can get a false sense of security, not really thinking things through, just living your lives. Because I'm certain that's what people were doing in the country where World War II kicked off, right before it kicked off. Because who thought after World War One, like, people would enter into another battle or another war that involved like every country in the world, right? So those are my thoughts on that. And I almost always feel like that's where I am. I almost always feel like there's so many times where I'm walking around and everything's so peaceful. We went the college professor that I do conversational English with, his name is Professor Park, and I'm just gonna call him Professor Park from now on, and you guys are just gonna have to know who he is. But we went up to what is it? Dang, Pugak Skyway, not Pugak Skyway, but we went to Pukansan, and we walked around the base of Pukansan, and it was just this super chill day where it had just rain and the kids are playing in the stream, and it was just lovely, just this surreal experience. And I was just like, I wonder if people were doing this before major conflicts kicked off in their regions, be it World War II, be it World War One, be it Syria. I wonder if people just chilling before all that stuff happened, like this. Like, I'm sure that's what was going on. So the idea that we are where we have always been for 50 years, I think that's a misstatement. Like, in the last 50 years, America has never felt threatened. And I think that's the big difference between what we have now and what we've had in my last 15 years here. Like, it's never, like, I've never seen the media, and I've seen them work up in a frenzy about a war in the Korean Peninsula, in this region of Asia, but I've never seen the media whip up in a frenzy about a possible nuke hitting New York, or a possible nuke hitting DC or Los Angeles or Seattle or something like that. I've never seen them react. I've never seen them talk with that kind of this could hit home mentality. And that to me is what the big difference is. So I don't know, man. I think I agree with these guys to a certain extent because I think they're right. But that's kind of a gullible thing. Don't be so gullible to where you put your family in danger. Put it that way. I'm froggy at all times. I'm froggy by nature, but I'm ready to leap to the next pedal. Like get everybody on the boat. Like get everybody on the plane and get them out here at a moment's notice. Like bug out bags packed and plans on how to get people. Get my family out of the country set up. So I don't see how anybody can watch what's going on and have a family and not be in the same situation. Like if you happen to be hearing what I'm saying and you have a family here in Korea and it's your job to protect them, and it's going to be harder to move a family of 4 or 5 out of here than it would be for a single person teaching English over here, or a single person working at a bank over here, or working for Samsung over here. Like you should be doing your due diligence. If it's one of you, then it's really different. But there's 4 of me, and I have 4 family members. One of them is not a U.S. citizen, and there has to be plans in place to get her out of country because my mother-in-law is who I'm talking about. My wife probably wouldn't leave her. I don't know. That'd be a tough call to make because I'm sure she wouldn't leave her son either. So that's my take on North Korea and the threat between the threat within and what's been going on all this time. Really ain't got much else for you guys. It's already 10 o'clock. I was gonna go through and kind of mosey on through some Facebook, and look at some events. I'll probably put that together tomorrow morning because I ain't gonna be doing nothing. I ain't got work. And the wife probably wants to watch this Korean drama that we've been watching. It's a cool Korean drama where Korean dramas always end in this happy ending where the couple gets married. Well, it goes beyond that. The couple gets married, they hate each other, they get divorced, and then they go back in time to when they were kids and when they met, to the day before they met. And the day they met, and they kind of get a chance to do it all over again. But dude, marriage is a marriage. I want to talk about this with somebody or get somebody else who's married here to kind of talk it back and forth. Marriage is a compromise, but the kids, man, when you talk about if you could ever take away a marriage, if you could ever just erase the fact that you got married. The fact that your kid wouldn't exist anymore, that's a whole different animal. We'll talk about that probably in the next, we'll talk about family a little bit in the next episode, the next Prepisode. I will be back next Thursday with another session of the Seoulweaver podcast. Be sure to share this with your friends if you happen to have any that want to hear an English podcast about Korea. Join the Seoulweavers Facebook group. Join us, sign or like the Seoulweavers Facebook page. And follow us on Instagram and Twitter because we're trying to get more active on those outlets and share things with you guys as time goes on. I'm going to get Uni involved in that, and she's going to be sharing things and putting things together. We got a lot of things that we want to do over the next couple of years. So if you want to be part of that, jump on those platforms and follow us on those platforms and send messages to us back and forth, man. I'm sitting on there chatting. So, we can have a 2-way conversation. Eventually we'll be having 2-way conversations here on freaking YouTube while we're screening this live eventually, hopefully. But yeah, that's all I got. I'm gonna get out of here. Thanks guys for tuning in and watching and checking this out. I know these are long and I know they're kind of forming into their own thing, but they will be great once I get everything set up. So thanks for being patient with me, and thanks for joining me. I will see you in the next episode, the next Prepisode of the Seoulweaver podcast, the Seoulweaver Webcast. I'll see you then. Till then, stay interlaced. Will Brooks out.